If today we talk about the character of Woody, we think of that heroic cowboy who is a great leader for his team of toys, who is brave, empathetic, and above all, very loyal to the child who decides to take care of. But it wasn't always this way. Do you remember Woody in the first Toy Story movie? That insecure Woody who hated Buzz Lightyear because he was jealous? Certainly, Woody has come a long way as a character since then, and that's exactly what makes him so interesting. The fact that he, like us, seems to experience an existential crisis that he resolves throughout the 4 films of the saga. Hello dear geekers, how are you? I am Gio the Geek Monitor, and I welcome you to a new chapter of Beyond the Obvious, a series of videos in which I analyze children's movies to discover their hidden meaning. Today I will tell you, how is the character of Woody in the Toy Story franchise? Talks to us about existential crises and the search he undertook to find a purpose in life, a search with which we can all identify. Monitor. Before starting with this video, let me tell you that I found an easy way to access the Netflix catalog from all over the world using an application called CyberGhost Virtual Private Network. With this service and your Netflix account, you can watch movies like Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and others that are not available in our country today. Each of them subtitled or dubbed in Spanish. What this service does is hide your global position, which in addition to giving you access to movies that are not in your region. It allows you to browse safely on public Wi-Fi networks, torrents, and gives you access to platforms that are not available in our country, like Hulu or ESPN. The best part is that they have a special price for channel subscribers. And for just $2.75 per month, you can have this service on 7 different devices. You can find this app for Windows, Mac, Linux, and many more. I'll leave the link in the description and in the first comment of the video. Now let's get to the topic. Chapter 1. Woody's Identity Crises. At the beginning of the first Toy Story movie, Woody seems to have his life figured out. He spends his days living imaginary adventures with Andy, being the undisputed leader of his toys. And basically with a very clear purpose and place in life. Woody was Andy's favorite toy and his loyal friend. However, his life changes dramatically when Andy is given a Buzz Lightyear toy, the most sensational toy of the season. He had it all. Wrist communicator, karate chop action, flashing laser light, multi-phrase voice simulator, and best of all, high-pressure wings. The impressive voice appearance makes this soon to become Andy's new favorite toy. Even the other toys are now wondering if Woody is the best leader option for them. This is where Woody experiences the first of several identity crises he has throughout the saga. According to psychologists, an identity crisis is a period in which a person experiences deep doubts about themselves. This gives us a feeling of anxiety as we are trying to redefine who we are and we feel insecure. In fact, this is something very common in children when a younger sibling is about to be born. Children, like Woody, go through a stage of jealousy where they feel they are not emotionally reciprocated, or at least not with the intensity or frequency they were used to. Woody will naturally feel insecure. That is, from sleeping in the bed and having posters of him on the wall, he ended up sleeping in a trunk. And we see the consequences of this when Woody starts making bad decisions due to this insecurity. We see it when Woody tries to mock Buzz and ridicule him publicly to feel better about himself. But let's not be too hard on Woody. Can you imagine what you would do if your life situation changed so dramatically? Hey Leo, what do you think? Are you going to have a little sister? Woody isn't the only one having an identity crisis in this movie. Buzz also has to rethink his life situation when he finds out he's not a real space guardian, but a toy made in Taiwan. And really, Buzz doesn't handle the situation much better than Woody. While Woody dealt with his problems with an attempted murder, Buzz plunged into a deep depression, wanting to drown his sorrows, having a cup of tea with Marie Antoinette and her little sister. Fortunately, both managed to overcome this crisis as they found a new purpose together, being Andy's toys, and being there for when he needs them. With this conclusion, it doesn't matter if you're the favorite or not, or if you're a space guardian or not, what matters is being there for Andy. And this conclusion brought peace of mind to both Buzz and Woody for a while. Just as it's common for children to feel jealous when a younger sibling is about to be born, humans go through other periods of crisis throughout their lives, one of them during adolescence. A point where we seek independence and find ourselves in a stage where we are no longer children, but we are not yet adults. In the same way, Woody goes through another crisis in the second Toy Story movie, in which he starts to think that over time, he will break and will be replaced or forgotten by Andy. This thought tests the conclusion Woody came to in the first movie. Because if Andy no longer wants to be with him, then what purpose does Woody's life have? That's why Stinky Pete's proposal to be in a museum being admired by several generations of children sounds so interesting. At first, because this would give a new purpose to Woody's life. In other words, if Andy can replace Woody, why couldn't Woody replace Andy's affection with the admiration of other children? Fortunately for Woody, Buzz still had his life purpose very clear and reminded Woody of his. When he says a toy taught me that above all, life has no meaning if you are not loved by a child. Woody then resumes the conclusion he reached in the first movie, but now he is more clear that Andy will not be a child forever. A moment that seems distant until we get to Toy Story 3. In this movie, which could well have been the end of the Toy Story saga, Woody and his friends face the fact that Andy no longer plays with toys and is close to leaving them in an attic to go to college. To everyone except Woody. This is where the toys have to find a life purpose that does not depend on Andy. At first they think they can be at Sunnyside playing with the other kids, but towards the end of the movie, Andy's toys realize they need a more particular affection. One that does not come from dozens of kids playing with you, but from the fact of being there for one particular child. For most of the team, the decision is not hard. I mean, it's about playing with Bonnie or being locked in the attic hoping that one day Andy will have kids. However, things for Woody are not easy at all, as Andy wants to take him to college. So Andy is not ready to say goodbye to Woody, and Woody in turn is not ready to say goodbye to Andy. This is the moment when most of us broke down in the cinema. The moment when both Andy and Woody realize they have to let go, despite the immense affection they feel for each other. That their lives can no longer be intertwined because circumstances have changed, that growing up is part of living, and that's okay. Anyway, Woody still retains that purpose he discovered in the first Toy Story movie, only now, instead of being Andy's toy, he will take care of Bonnie. Could we stop here? And could Pixar really have stopped at this point? But I think Woody's biggest crisis comes in Toy Story 4, as in this movie Woody has to rethink. What is really a toy, and if his life has a meaning beyond being linked to a child? Chapter 2: The Essence of a Toy. Just as Woody has wondered throughout each Toy Story movie, what is his purpose in life, humans have also asked the same question. For centuries, and during this time, different philosophers have come to different conclusions. It should be noted that this section will have light spoilers for Toy Story 4. The ancient Greeks, for example, believed that your life's purpose was linked to your essence. Essence is a series of qualities that are necessary for a thing to be what it is. For example, a spoon can be made of metal or wood. Those are things that can change, but necessarily, a spoon must have a concave surface and a handle. These two elements, then, are part of the essence of a spoon, and we can say that the purpose of a spoon is to help humans hold liquids or food. If we follow this line, the essence of a toy is that it is an object that has the potential to be fun and that its purpose is to entertain someone. In this sense, a spoon, fork, or spork can become a toy if someone changes its purpose from being a kitchen item to an item with which someone has fun. In fact, spoons can even be musical instruments. However, it is much easier to find a purpose for objects as they were designed with a purpose in mind. In the case of Woody and the rest of his friends in the movie who have human feelings, things are much more complicated. In fact, finding a purpose for them is just as difficult as finding a purpose for ourselves. As we said, for several centuries it was thought that our purpose was linked to our essence, and our essence was given to us by God. So, in a very similar way to objects, we had been designed with a purpose in mind. The purpose of following God's plan, whatever it may be, and following the rules of a certain religion, whichever it may be. That kept us happy for several centuries, until some philosophers called existentialists began to doubt the existence of a God. That brings us a lot of problems, because if we were not designed with a purpose in mind, why are we here and what do we do with our life? At the beginning of Toy Story 4, we see how Woody seems to be sure of what a toy should do. So much so that he tries to change Forky's life purpose to fit what he believes a toy should do. Forky, for his part, has to change, as his purpose now is not to go to the trash, but to be a toy. In this case, Bonnie gave Forky his essence, his purpose, and even life. However, throughout the movie, Woody's mindset is shaken. When he meets Bo Peep's character again, who now lives freely as what Woody calls a lost toy. And Bo really is a character designed to confront all the fears and ideologies that Woody has, which makes him enter a crisis that goes beyond identity, an existential crisis. According to existentialist philosophers, life does not have a predefined meaning, nothing does. However, we can give it one. There will be people who find meaning through religion, family work, or even through the search for a source. Szechuan, like in the Rick and Morty cartoon. According to Woody, his purpose is to take care of Bonnie, but now he's not so sure. In this movie, Woody feels that his mission with Bonnie is over and that he will be happier somewhere else. However, reaching this conclusion is not easy at all, as it means believing in something different from what Woody has believed all his life. Can you imagine how difficult that is? For me, I think this is the greatest rescue and the greatest feat that Woody accomplishes throughout the saga. The story plays with the concept of the lost toy that we've seen in all the Toy Story movies. Just to point out that the one who is lost now is Woody, and he is lost without him realizing it. It's been 24 years since the first Toy Story movie was released. Perhaps many of you were not even born yet. Maybe some of you were too young to remember that time. But I, who was 8 years old at that time, remember that the world was a very different place than we know today. Beyond that, my world was very different from the one I have today. And this change that we have all experienced in these 24 years is something that is clearly reflected in Woody. And that's why I believe the franchise remains so relevant today, because Woody has changed with us. At first I thought Toy Story was about the process of growing up, but when I grew up and had a child, I found a different meaning in the movie. And it's very common for us parents to give everything for our children, our time, our dreams, and even our voice box. We have a great loyalty towards our children, which comes from the deep love we have for them. But in this process, we sometimes forget that we are people too, and that there is a time when our life purpose must be separate from theirs. In the same way that Woody goes through a process of deconstruction and manages to have new purposes, Toy Story presents us with the idea that as parents, we eventually have to let go, and once our children are ready, return to being individual people again. If you enjoyed this video essay, check out my other videos about Megamind and meritocracy, and Kung Fu Panda and the Chaos Theory. Other videos in which I analyze the hidden meaning of children's movies. I am Gio the Geek Monitor, and I'll see you in the next video.